Okay, so welcome to the review video, the final review video. Now here, I'll try to briefly review especially the framework of this class and what you have learned, where everything fits at a very general level. So I'll try to keep it short. Um, so as you can see, we started with the thinking and knowledge framework. We said that the new information, right? Let me try my thing. We said that the new information that we encounter, right, is made sense of, correct? So if this is the new information, right? So the new information that is made sense of, it is the new information, and we are making sense of it. There's a basic thing you can do by using your knowledge, right? You make sense of the new information. By making sense of the new information, you are actually making some alteration to the existing knowledge. Now we said that it is not done in vacuum, but it is actually done in a memory system, right? And we said that this process of making sense of the new information by using knowledge, in doing so actually changing knowledge structure, is thinking, right? And we talked about different parts of the memory system, how information goes through sensory memory to working memory and long-term memory, and what all you need to do to make sure the information goes from working memory to long-term memory, and also what else do you need to do to make sure that the information stays in the long-term memory for later retrieval. Okay, now thinking involves knowledge, and we talked about different kinds of knowledge and how different kinds of knowledge can be acquired, and so it's all, everything you learned is kind of related to the thinking process. And towards the end of this course, we kind of talked about and continued the one thing that we brought about, classification of thinking. We said that you can think of thinking as system 1 and system 2 thinking based on the speed. And we said system 1 is more quick thinking, and system 2 is more deliberate thinking. And we said critical thinking involves system 2 more than system 1 thinking. And we also said that you can practice critical thinking and you can turn that into your system 1 thinking, but system 2 is basically, sorry, critical thinking is basically system 2 thinking, where you need to slow down and monitor your thinking. Now, coming to coming to other things that we are, other things that we learned after this basic framework of knowledge, thinking, language, whatnot, we moved on to talk about different kinds of thinking, not based just on the speed, right? Not just based on speed, but based on other constructs like the context or the purpose. So in terms of the speed itself, we talked about system 1 and system 2 thinking, right? Then remember we talked about reasoning. Okay, now this is the point I want to make. This is my understanding. This is how, when I try to learn information, I try to organize it and kind of put it in a way that information gets added in this context, right? So this is my understanding of how I would like to see the later processes we discussed in this class, like hypothesis testing, decision making, as opposed to deduction and induction that we first discussed, right? My way of classifying this is for my purposes of making sense of it. That's what we do, right? We encounter new information, we try to make sense of it based on what we already know. The way I look at it is this, again, doesn't mean that this is the only way to look at it. Somebody else may argue in a different way. Nevertheless, what is important though are the skills that you've learned in this class. The way I organize it is based on my understanding of it and how I see it, based on my limited knowledge of the cognitive psychology. The way I look at it is that if thinking is system 1 and 2, and we said making the minimum you can do with thinking is making sense of information, right? And we said making sense of information is like a categorical thinking. We're trying to see if this new experience you have, the new object you're presented with, it fits the existing categories of things. So you're using your knowledge for categorical thinking. Now, this kind of thinking, right? One or the other way involves a reasoning process. So basic thinking involves deduction and induction. Either we are making probabilistic conclusions, or you are making, what do you say, conclusions that necessarily follow the additional information, right? Remember how you're using your knowledge to make sense of new information, and this is a dynamic process. So I think of reasoning, which I refer to deductive inductive reasoning, or the basic processes of logic where you try to make sense of the world around you. Make sense? Okay. Now, when we say we try to make sense of a world around you, even it can be a fast way of making sense of things around you. For instance, if you are walking, let's say, right, and you encounter a lot of objects on your way, and you automatically make sense of things so quickly so that you can maneuver through the environment and walk in that the direction you wanted to go. And for you to quickly, unconsciously, automatically need to perceive objects to determine whether it's harmful or not, to approach it, or you need to make a decision to avoid it. So this all happens automatically, right? So the point I'm trying to make is that the reasoning processes that you go through when you're making sense of the world around you could be automatic or deliberate. They work. For instance, when you the way brain works is when an image is formed, when you look at something, an image is formed in the retina, right? Now the image that's formed in the retina is a two-dimensional image coming from the light reflected from a three-dimensional object. Your brain has to make sense of where is this coming from, because this image that's formed on the retina can come from multiple other objects in the world. So it's going through an inferential process of where this image might have come from. It's called the inverse projection problem. But the point I'm trying to make is that the simple process of perception that we automatically do involves inferential process. So I call those inferential processes as deductive and inductive processes. Now, the other things what we discussed, which involves reasoning, are beyond this, and we'll talk about that. So the point, in terms of speed, it's system 1 or 2, and either one of these you use the basic reasoning process. I call them inferential processes called deduction and induction. Then the other point is that based on the context itself, you can think of, based on the context itself, you can think of or categorize thinking into different ways, right? For instance, the first basic thing is to comprehend. Perceive, it's at the object level. Comprehend is beyond the object level, right? So perception and broader comprehension are the basic things, and we use inductive and deductive logic. Now, beyond that, depending on the purpose of your interaction with the object, meaning why you are doing what you're doing in terms of trying to solve a problem, answer a question, discuss with people around you, or make some decisions in your life, depending on these higher level purposes in your life, and which determine what kind of thinking you do, right? Nevertheless, whatever the task is, these two kinds of reasoning are gonna be your standard foundational thinking, inferential methods. But depending on the context, though, it keeps changing, right? And that's what we're talking about. If it is in the realm of science, we talk about hypothesis testing, which includes both inductive and deductive logic at different steps. Okay, if it's in the realm of everyday life, where you are talking to people and kind of substantiating your own beliefs, or trying to pursue somebody to something else, or you are watching a video of a politician who's making an argument, all these sorts of things also use the deductive and inductive logic or the basic inferential processes, but given the context, it changes, and we call them arguments, and the kind of processes are more tuned here. That's where we talk about premises, the strength of the premises, truth value of it, whatnot, right? All those has come into picture. That's a different purpose and context. Again, you're using the similar again, this is my understanding. You're using the similar inferential processes in different contexts. Science context, argumentation context. In fact, when you have tested your hypothesis, you use the argumentation context rules of logic to actually write your paper, right? Now, then comes probabilistic thinking. Again, it involves deductive and inductive logic, but in the context of multiple things, where the things you're talking about, the claims you're making, or the inferences you're making are probabilistic in nature, and that involves inductive logic, of course, because inductive logic conclusions are more probabilistic. But even in deduction, you use it because you don't use them separately. Anyways, even hypothesis testing involves probabilistic thinking. Even general inferential process of determining what it is requires inferential thinking, probabilistic thinking. So these are not like isolated. We have classified these as different thinking ways depending on the task at hand, depending on the purposes of thinking, depending on the goal you have, the objective you have at any given point of time. Your thinking can fall in one or the other areas, or it can involve all or two or more. Then decision making is when you have a very specific purpose of solving a problem or making a decision. And I put these two together because there is some similarity which we didn't go over a lot in this class, but problem solving is trying to solve a problem or find a solution to a problem by using some strategies. And there are strategies that are shortcuts, there are strategies that are guarantee an answer strategies give you an answer like algorithm, but there are heuristic which are shortcuts. So all those things, but decision making in one way can be viewed also as a problem solving method of where you're trying to solve a problem, but the solutions are already given to you and you are selecting the best option given to you, the best of all the solution options given to you. So that's one way of looking at it, although we don't make the distinction, but I just wanted you to, in a bigger picture, understand that problem solving distinction involve a realm. They belong to a realm where you're using inferential process for a different specific purpose of getting to the point of getting to the answer, whether the answers are given to you and choosing it, decision making, or you are finding the answers, in which case it's a problem solving. Okay, so what does it all mean? Well, what it all means is that critical thinking is very critical, right? And it involves a lot of other things. One thing that is really important, which will help you, given the fact that you're taking this class, is that all the other courses you may have taken on critical thinking related to the logic level, whatever, are more skill based. This class was primarily for the purposes of giving you a psychological perspective of it, so that we can fit in thinking, cognitive psychology perspective of thinking, and how we can define thinking of this different sorts, and specifically critical thinking. So critical thinking as such, if you remember the definition, is not a kind of thinking. It is a thinking which is goal-directed, focused, deliberate, right? It also involves the mindset of being open-minded, right? And consensus building attitude. So I'll go back to that formula that we discussed about critical thinking is equal to your knowledge plus thinking skills. That's where all these things that we discussed come in, okay? And your attitude. The attitude here refers to your dispositions, of being open-minded and all the things that we discussed, in addition to having an attitude of being metacognitively aware and evaluate both the product of your thinking and also the processes, the reasoning processes, right? The processes that went into your thinking so that you revisit it, review it, and change it. So I hope you like this video, and I hope you enjoy taking this class. The idea is to give you a psychological perspective of critical thinking and thinking in general, and to be a critical thinker is not a one-time thing. Take one course and you can't become a critical thinker. You need to continuously work on it, develop on it, and more importantly, you need to be aware of it. Well, I hope you enjoyed this class, and I enjoyed recording these lectures. So have fun, good luck, be a critical thinker, and continue to try to be a critical thinker. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.